I'm going to show you 3 surefire methods to ensure you'll never run out of drum pattern ideas again. Make sure you stick around until the end, where I'll be sharing some advanced tips and tricks to further elevate this workflow. I'm using Ableton Live, but don't worry, these methods can be applied in any DAW. The first method for creating endless drum grooves involves using a drum rack loaded with an assortment of one-shot percussion samples. For this project, I'm using a selection of bongo samples. I highly recommend saving your drum racks in advance to not stifle creativity by searching for sounds. To get started, create a new MIDI clip. On the left-hand side of the piano roll window, you'll find the Generate section. You can experiment with different tools within this section, but for generating rhythmic patterns, I found the Seed function to be the most effective. The Seed MIDI tool randomly generates notes within specified pitch, length, and velocity ranges. The pitch control selects the range of pitches for the generated notes. The duration sets the range of note lengths, with higher values resulting in more spaced out and less chaotic patterns. The velocity determines the range of note velocities. The voice control sets the maximum number of simultaneous notes to be generated. For drum grooves, it's usually best to keep this on the lower end to avoid clutter. The last control, density, adjusts the total number of generated notes. A high density will fill the MIDI clip with notes, creating a busier pattern, while a lower setting will result in a more sparse and minimal groove. I played around with these controls until I generated some patterns I liked. You might notice that these generated patterns often result in a random assortment of notes that don't immediately form a usable groove. However, the goal isn't to use the entire clip of notes as is. Instead, you're looking for interesting sections or riffs that can be extracted and pieced together to form a cohesive groove. After experimenting for a few minutes, I generated these 3 grooves. They are each composed from different generations, then combined to craft a unique rhythm. Here's how they sound with the rest of the drums, followed by the track. The next method builds on the previous one with a slight variation. Instead of filling the drum rack with multiple samples of the same instrument, use a mix of different drum sounds. For example, I've added a shaker and some hi-hats to the bongo samples from my own libraries. This approach works well for adding variety and texture. In this project, I don't need much, just enough to transition smoothly between sections of the bongo groove. Here's what I made. Then, with the bongos, and playing with the full drum groove, followed by the track. The third method focuses on using loops. Start by dropping a percussion loop into a simpler or sampler of your choice. Slice the loop by transient or grid, depending on what works best for your material. Use the same random note generation method as before, utilizing the seed setting to create new patterns. Then, experiment with the generated slices until you find a groove that fits. For example, I've loaded a cowbell and a shaker loop into simpler. I've sped up the footage, but this is me following the technique outlined in the previous sections, this time working with a loop. Here's the result. Then, alongside the percussion we've already made, and with the rest of the drums, followed by the full track. Let's say you like the groove but not the sounds. You can easily swap out these sounds manually or use Ableton's Sound Similarity Search. This feature finds similar sounds in your database and allows you to browse through them using these arrows. This is how I like to make kick and snare grooves to ensure I'm using the best sounds for the track. Alternatively, you can swap out the entire drum rack with a different palette of sounds and save the rack for future use. This is the benefit of creating grooves in MIDI. Auditioning and swapping out sounds is a breeze. You can even follow the same method in Simpler too, either by swapping out the loop or adjusting the slices while keeping the MIDI pattern the same. This keeps the groove intact while allowing you to explore different sound options. If you're wishing that this generation method could be applied to synths, you're in luck. Using Simplant and an audio clip, whether it's from a track or a loop, you can generate synth patches inspired by the inputted sound. It's a pretty cool process that allows you to create hundreds of patches in no time at all. You can even demo Simplant free for 3 weeks. If this sounds interesting, you might want to check out my short video here, which takes you through this process step by step. I hope you find it valuable. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.